but it doesn't take much for you to just say, hey, killing babies is bad. And that's all you need to know. Killing kids is bad. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Kim Abor, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Fim from the She Rose podcast. You already know that when we talk, we go deep, honest, and straight to the point. Today, we're focusing on Gaza and Israel, the 2,000 Palestinian hostages that were just released, while over 9,000 are still being held hostage. We'll be unpacking the emotional impact of seeing these hostages freed, others returning home to find out that their families are no longer living, and what this means for the fragile ceasefire that is still in place as of right now. Before we dive in, make sure that you're following both me and Fim for more updates on Gaza, global politics, and the stories that often don't get heard. All right, let's jump into it. So 2,000 hostages were just released, or that's over 2,000 people that get to go home to see their families. But with that being said, we've seen several people make it back to Gaza to find their families are no longer living. And I just, it was an emotional day for me yesterday and the day before watching all this unfold. I can't even imagine being one of the people there and either fighting out and seeing your family or coming back home and not seeing your family. What do you think, Fem?
Yeah, the whole entire thing was really emotional. There was definitely some good moments where seeing families be reunited with their loved ones in some instances that they haven't seen. I saw a father be reunited with his daughter whom he hadn't seen in 20 years. 20 years in one of those places. I can hardly imagine. Most of them come out looking like, thin, and you can tell they really try to break their spirits in there. But alhamdulillah, I'm very happy that that they're out of there. But it is really sad and tragic to think that there's still upwards of maybe 9,000 or more people that are still left in there. So yeah, it was painful to see. I mean, some came out with really horrible health conditions, and others, just the emotional reunions with their families was definitely powerful. I even actually have one of my families that I love dearly that went today to go in to reunite with their family members that were released. So a lot of people.
And I know we've talked about this several times before, but it's just so important that it's not just the physical captivity. Like, we have to think about the mental trauma and all that comes with the uncertainty, the fear, the despair. Most of these people probably thought they were never going to see their families again. And now we are able to see that some of them were able to go home and be reunited. And these are people who have been gone for months, weeks, years, right? Like, this is not something that just happened and they just, these are people who were disappeared by the occupation. I do have a video clip that I wanted to show you real quick. This is a video of a family member that was reunited with his family.
Oh, I can't even imagine. So something I learned also was that apparently people didn't know which hostages were going to be coming out of there. So it was a surprise for a lot of people whether their family members were going to be getting out or not. So
Yes.
That was something that they didn't actually release information of, like who was going to even be released. And they haven't been given any news about their loved ones. As a matter of fact, they've used it as a form of psychological torture to tell people things that are untrue while they were locked in Israeli detainment in those torture chambers, I guess we can call them.
Yeah. And the other thing with that is it's been so crazy to see, when people actually do get out and they make it home, what happens now? Like, we don't even know. We understand the ceasefire in terms of what it says, but we already know that Israel is not sticking to what they've agreed upon. I do have one more video that I wanted to show you guys, and it was of the Palestinian prisoners being released as like a group. So let me show you that real quick.
والعمر ما أحلام لما يكون الأسر مهرب سبيل الله يما وحنين الأهل يما وحنين الأهل في القلب ما أغلى فرحة لا توصف بصراحة الواحد فرح صار يعيط سبيل الوطن عزم وسجن
So all this stuff just like makes me want to cry every time I see it.
Yeah, I'm like choking back tears right now for sure as well. I can't imagine what that felt like for all of them. I mean, especially also like you have to think while they've been in there, they've been wondering whether their family members like survived the genocide or not. So to actually finally be reunited with your loved ones after like so much unknowing has just got to be overwhelming, to say the least.
Speaking of which, some of the family members that returned home to not finding their families, I do have a video of that I wanted to play. And just to be forewarned, this is a harder video to watch, so be prepared.
يا بنت العيال هذه يا بنت خلاص هي عيد ميلادها 13/10 عيد ميلادها ماتت بنتي عمرها قد ايه؟ براء عمرها 8 سنين امان 5 سنين حبايبي ماتوا يا
So I'm not sure if you were able to read that very quick because it happened kind of quickly, but basically he returned home to find his children and his wife gone, dead and killed by the occupation. And it was supposed to be his daughter's 5th birthday on October 18th, which is 4 days from now. I am not sure how long he was actually kept in captivity or kept as hostage, but either way, I can't imagine getting out and the only thing you're thinking about is seeing your family to find out when you get there that they're no longer living.
It's just heartbreaking. There's no other way to put it. And, a lot of these people were taken, like when they were paraded through the streets in the north, they were abducted by the IDF and they were taken hostage. And let's be clear, the media has been outwardly, and a lot of people, I think, without thinking about it, have been calling them prisoners while we're labeling the Israeli hostages as hostages. But these people were never charged with any crime. They were never given a trial. They are not prisoners. What crime did they commit other than being Palestinian on their own land, which was coveted by the Zionist entity?
And I'm so glad you brought that up because I meant to do it earlier. My brain just got fried with watching those videos. But that is a very important piece because these are just people. These are people like you and I, people that just living their daily lives who happen to get abducted and disappeared by the occupation. Families have no contact once these people are taken. There's no way for them to contact anyone. Who they're going to contact? On top of the fact that they're in a place like Gaza, like the West Bank, where they're locked in, can't get out of there where they're at. So there's lots of things going against them. So when these people finally make it home, it's no wonder why it's such a reunion and why it's so heartbreaking and so sad and so happy and all of those things all at once, because these are people that, one, we didn't even know that we're alive, and two, who would ever thought that they'd be able to come home and see their families again? So this has been a crazy week emotionally, just watching.
Can I throw one little tidbit in there too for anyone that's watching? So none of the hostages that were released on the Palestinian side, none of the Palestinians that were released had anything to do with October 7th.
Right.
And some of them had been in there long before October 7th. So that just goes to show that this is just more, it's imprisoning these people. I like how you said abducting them and, imprisoning them for nothing pretty much other than existing, just goes to further show that this is not have anything to do with October 7th. This started long before, and it's really been this whole mechanism of dehumanizing the Palestinians and trying to break their spirit. And it's been a campaign of fear mongering, basically setting an example to anyone that, just for being Palestinian. It's like, if you're Palestinian or you resist us, in any way, shape, or form, like, we're going to make your life a living hell. Yes. So it's set to make other people afraid to basically resist, or rather even just exist and stay on their own land.
Right. So these are moments that are, I can't even put it into words how upsetting yesterday. And it should be a good moment, right? This should be a good moment where families are reunited with their loved ones. But to me, it's just heartbreaking. For one, that they even had to go through it in the first place. And two, when you see these families who do make it home, all they could probably thinking about while they were in these inhumane places were thinking about getting home to see their families.
And wondering, like you said, if they ever would get out of there again. And, one of my my families who went today to go reunite with their loved ones who were released told me that they look starkly different from when they went in there, like skin and bones, and the light in their eyes is just dim. And he told me that his relatives, they would lock them in boxes essentially for like up to 8 days sometimes with no food or water, with no, no health care, no medical treatment, no nothing. Like literal the worst forms of torture you can imagine. I mean, electroshock therapy. I saw a video of a little boy with autism getting released. Like, what did he
Why
ever
would they
do
even?
wrong?
There's no reason for them to take a child with autism. For
Exactly.
what reason?
Right. What threat did he pose to the occupation?
And these
Just
are the
goes to
sick
show the
things that,
level
like,
of
I
their
don't think people
brutality.
understand, right? And
Yeah.
this is why we have to keep talking about it, because these are the things that people just think, oh, they're prisoners. They must have done something wrong. No.
Yeah. That's
If
why
all
it's
you
really
do is
important.
exist.
It's really
What?
important to what we're doing right now with independent media. Like sometimes it takes a lot out of me, or I feel like what's the point? But really the point is that like we're here to help educate people in the West that maybe don't know the truth. And like we need to be really careful about the wording that we use, because this has been this has been a war of like the media and
Yes.
through words with the propaganda. Like when you use words like prisoner, you are insinuating that they did something wrong to deserve to be there in the first place, when most of them have done nothing wrong at all. And so that's why it is really important to do what we're doing right now, because we need to educate each other on how to rehumanize and how to just change the narrative, so that we're not you know propping up these ideals that are just untrue about the Palestinian people. And one thing that I think lends to that is the media's, constant whitewashing, them using words like prisoners, like giving all of the empathy to the Israeli hostages while there's like no empathy for the Palestinian hostages or Palestinian people. I've seen a lot of talk about how, even Trump said it himself, oh, like, everyone just wanted the hostages to come back. So that's the main thing we're focused on. It's like, no, everyone also wanted to see the death and destruction of hundreds of thousands of people and the entire Gaza Strip fucking stop. Excuse my language.
So also, I just want to point out how many prisoners were exchanged. 20 people and a few that were unalive, right? 20. And in contrast to that, there's over, 11,000 that we know of that were being held. So how does that make sense? Like, you have one group of people who are locked in to a specific area, can't go anywhere, but yet they're being rounded up and put into prisons, disappeared, whatever you want to call it. But yet 20 hostages who were kept, cared for, and then released back. And the only thing that the Western media is covering is the 20 hostages that were released.
Right.
How does that make sense?
Yeah. It goes to show that the system is inherently racist and that this is a real issue of supremacy all around. It's white supremacy. And unfortunately, the darker your skin, the less coverage you're going to get. The less people seem to care, sadly. At least the media.
The media makes me so mad. And I think that's why both of us have come out and tried to create these talking points and pieces, because we can't trust what we're seeing on the news, right? When they're only spinning it one way because all the corporations are owned by the same conglomerate. Doesn't matter which news source you watch, there's still propaganda for Israel and the United States.
Mhm.
So it's just a stark reminder of these stories are not just headlines. They're actually people's lives. These are things that happen every single day. There's real joy, there's real pain, and we can't just swish it off like it's, we can flip the TV off and be like, oh, we're done now. There's nothing more for us to do. And that's a whole other topic that we probably won't even have time for today, but this is just the fact of people saying, oh, well, the ceasefire's happened, we're done. No, we're not.
We're far from done, and we'll see how well this thing holds up. This is just the first. Still, we're just in the first phase of the deal. So we'll see in the coming days, like what's going to happen. And I don't know if that brings us to our next point or not,
It does.
but I think that it definitely will intertwine well with, I think, what we're about to talk about.
So now we do have the ceasefire agreement, right? But whether or not that holds or stays is a whole different topic of conversation. It's very fragile at its very best, and some reports are showing that Israel may be undermining it, which could destabilize the region even farther than what we're already doing. And then on top of that, I just have to touch on this real quick, because Salah died this week, and he wasn't killed by IOF forces. He was killed by a militia-backed group allowed into the Gaza Strip. First of all, before we even get there, Gaza Strip is completely surrounded. No one gets in or out without the IOF's permission. Firstly and mostly. So the fact that these armed militia groups were able to get in and kill Salah it just goes to show you that even though the IOF say that they're backing down, they're not backing down. They're sitting in other groups who are not technically military any longer to go in and do their dirty work. And I am very scared for our popular people who are still on the ground in Gaza with what just happened with Salah.
It's so easy for them to like they did, and the media has been totally complicit in this the entire time. Where has the Western media been as their colleagues who are journalists are being killed savagely and hunted down like Salah was, like Anas al-Sharif? Like they both had come out and said toward the end of their life that they were terrified, that they were being hunted, and not only by the IOF, but by these militia groups that were funded and hired by Israel, traitors, the worst kind, and they're already inside the Gaza Strip. And part of this also, what makes this possible, this type of organized crime, unfortunately, is because the Palestinian people have been deprived now with the blockades of every resource that they could possibly need. They've been deprived of food, they've been deprived of water, they've been deprived of everything. And so this really lends to people being more easily influenced into organized crime. And it's really hard to imagine that anybody would do that, like literally backstab like their own people. But it's because people are pushed into such a desperate situation that it does make this type of thing easier to manufacture.
Yes, I completely agree with that 100%. You know, we don't know what we're going to do until we're put in these situations. Regardless, the fact that Salah was even murdered after the ceasefire, he got to see the ceasefire, and then the fact that he was murdered, what was it, a day or two before his brother was released, is beyond hard. Beyond hard.
It's so sad. I mean, and it's so like they just call them Hamas, and then what? That makes it okay? That makes it okay to just go and hunt somebody down and take their life? Like, and you can just, the media, that's dangerous. The propaganda is so dangerous. And the fact that there are people out there that just feed into it is really scary to me. And like, I think that that's why it's also really extra important that, you know, we correct that type of thing, and that we call it out where we see it. Like, we call out the media bias and the propaganda, because you know, you can't just say what if they turn that on us here in the US? You can't just say someone's a terrorist without any proof or evidence, and then you can go and kill them whenever you want at will.
Well, that's exactly what's happening, and I'm not going to get into that topic, but that's exactly what's happening here as well too. And I think that Trump and both Netanyahu are in cahoots to do this to both their populations, not just one or the other. And they're just gaining ideas from each other on how to do the most evil shit. And it just, you know, drives me crazy. The fact that Salah was murdered 2 days ago, he was murdered. And then I've also seen many articles, not Al Jazeera, but many other articles calling him Hamas.
Right.
He was not Hamas.
No.
He was not Hamas. He was a journalist who was killed doing his job, telling the stories of his people. And that's all.
Yeah, the only thing he was shooting was the truth with his camera. And when the truth is as devastating as it is, you can see why people that share the truth and spread the truth would become the enemy. I'm glad you pulled that up, because I was hoping you would. That's a long list. So
it's a very long list. It's 278 journalists from Palestine that have been killed so far. And this list is the most recent one that I could find. I'm sure it's not completely comprehensive, but it also includes 3 Lebanese and 2 Israelis that were killed as well, for anyone who wants to say anything negative about the list. But this just goes to show you 273 Palestinian journalists have been murdered by the IOF since the beginning of October 7th, not including even more than that from years previous.
Those are Palestinians, but I don't think most people realize that the IOF has literally killed American civilians who have been inside of Gaza. Activists, people, they're doing like, you know, journalism or just humanitarian work. Like, they've literally killed American citizens and US citizens. And where's the media been to report on that?
You know, what drives me nuts with that is I think that some people are actually there recording or reporting, but some of the stories, because of politics, don't get actually spread or shared or even published because they don't want to have a specific look. And unless you're using the word Hamas in every sentence, they're not going to publish your article.
Right.
You know, that is one thing that's really, like, as someone who's tried to like become more of a journalist and do actually field work with people from Gaza or even the ones that are in Egypt, is just learning about who they are, what their needs are, and how we can best help. And when you read these stories, any of these stories, like even the ones on Al Jazeera, I normally use Al Jazeera when I'm quoting stories and stuff like that, because I think that they give one of the most unbiased, but they're still biased. they're still definitely very biased. And even though they frame things in such a way that don't make them look like they're biased, I
Yeah,
still
I've
think that
still
it is
heard
a
them
little bit.
using the word prisoners when they're referring to
Right.
Palestinian hostages. Like, I'm like,
Right.
come on, guys. Like, let's be a little more conscious than that for sure. Yeah, of course. You're gonna
And
see
then
bias in most of these mainstream media outlets. And that's why people like Salah and, Anas al-Sharif and all the journalists who have been killed in Gaza have been extremely important to all of this and the whole movement, because they have been our eyes on the ground. When we see what they've been reporting from in the trenches, there's no denying that, like calling it AI or anything like that, right? So they
yes,
definitely are a threat, because that's just raw truth right there. And as we're talking about the ceasefire, it is weak and it is flimsy, and they are undermining the ceasefire already in multiple ways. I mean, literally causing dissent by, creating chaos with these hired militia groups inside the strip. And it's like, I feel like it's a really it was a clever little tricky little twisted way that they were like, okay, we're not going to kill anybody, but like that, we never said we weren't going to hire anybody inside the strip to do our bidding for us, which seems like that's a violation of the ceasefire, in my opinion, in the first place.
it
But
is a
also,
violation.
they have killed Palestinians, people who they claim have gone outside of the yellow lines or within the yellow lines where they're not supposed to be, where Israel's still occupying the Gaza Strip. They claimed that some of these Palestinian people who have returned to the north crossed the lines, and so they actually have killed, I think, up to, like, I can't remember the number, almost 19 or
And
something like that.
I just want to make this clear too. Like, these are lines on a map, a hand-drawn map, not a lines that are on Gaza. Like, there's
Like, how
nothing
do they
saying,
know?
"Oh, don't
Right.
cross this one, don't step your foot over this line." You know what I mean?
But yeah, the next thing I did want to mention about that as well is that, so, they're really just sly in everything that they do. So it's kind of changing the goalpost. Like, they've been changing the goalpost and changing the
Yes.
goalpost, and they continue to do that. And with things that are impossible, like one of the points in the ceasefire was that they want to get back all the hostages, dead and alive, right? But they've been carpet bombing the entire Gaza Strip the whole time, while their own hostages have been in there. Their own hostages have even come out and said that they were more afraid of dying by being bombed than by Hamas at any point in time that they were in captivity. And so one thing that Israel's now saying is they're not going to open the Rafah crossing as they were supposed to do tomorrow, because they haven't gotten back all of their dead hostages yet. But a lot of them are buried under the rubble now because they've been bombed. So retrieving them is going to be potentially near impossible. So what does that mean? And for the 17,000 people that are still in Gaza who need acute medical care, including children who are amputees because of what the occupation has done, they're saying, like, we'll not open this crossing, and all of those people are still not going to be given the chance to evacuate for medical help. They're also refusing to bring in much needed medical aid that they've been saying they were going to bring in since the beginning. And the last point is that they are going to be reducing the amount of aid that's going in. So these are all
Huge
violations of the
huge
ceasefire.
pieces
Yeah.
huge pieces of what's going on. And just as like you're saying about the medical evacuations that need to be happening, there's over 17,000, and that's not including, or that does include, the people who are dying of starvation and stage 5 famine, people who were hurt or missing limbs, like you said before. These are all of the people who are there who are in urgent need of evacuation. Like, it's not like, oh, they sprained their toe. No, they're going to die without proper medical treatment. And then
A young
some,
girl
even
that
if they
needed
get
to
that medical treatment, can still pass away. Go ahead.
Exactly. A young girl that was needing emergency evacuation, who a lot of us have actually seen in some stories online. So sad. She died of starvation before she had a chance to leave for medical help. So there are people still. It's not all just over with and magically now we have food, it's all good. No, like, there are people that will still die if they don't get the opportunity to leave, like you were saying. It's really,
Right, because medical attention
really.
there is pretty much obsolete. Like, they're very lucky if they even have like gauze to even treat what is going on, let alone sepsis and all the other things that are happening because of the tragic situations that have happened with the bombings and shootings and all that kind of stuff. Like, people think like, oh, if I stitch your wound, you're going to get better. No, you need medical treatment, you need medications, you need lots of things so that way you don't get sepsis. There's lots of other diseases that happen because you get injured. So it's not just the injury, it's all the things that happen because of the injury that can possibly affect their whether they get better or not. So the ceasefire isn't just words on paper, and it's a difference between safety and chaos for thousands of people. So we have to think about the bigger picture too. Humanitarian aid, hospitals, basic needs, what we were talking about before, and just helping them with that. But if Israel stops allowing aid in, we're back to the beginning of where we were last week.
And not to mention those yellow lines, all the land within the yellow lines that Israel is still occupying. We'll just call them the occupation. I don't like calling them Israel. I call them is not real. But everything within those yellow lines, that's actually like the majority of, if not all of, the agricultural land of Gaza. So if they were to want to like grow any food themselves or become sustainable again with their own agriculture, they can't right now because all of that land is being occupied. So they're pretty much like stuck at, in the coastal regions where there's a lot of sand and a lot of land that they can't really grow a whole lot of anything on.
Right. So for the listeners today, I just want to say that these are real human lives that we are talking about. These aren't people that we don't know. These are people that we have built and maintained relationships with. These are families on the ground. These are children. These are mothers. These are fathers. These are brothers, and they are sisters, first and foremost. If you are moved at all by what we are talking about, consider reading, learning, or even possibly donating to any one of these families that we know of that need our help. We have verified humanitarian organizations that we both work with, and I will be dropping links to all of those below this video, and you can go there to possibly help in any way that you can. The biggest thing that I hear from most people who are not involved with the movement in any type of way is, there's nothing that I can do. And that is the biggest falsehood and one of the biggest deterrents that I hear every single day. I don't care if you're sit in your room and you like to read. I don't care if you like to speak. Whatever you do, that there is something that you can do to make your voice heard. And it goes much farther than you think. There's so many families that need our help. Fim and I both know that there are so many families, and even we cannot reach everyone. If you need help looking for a family, reach out to one of us. We'd be glad to set you up with a family who could definitely use your help, your advocacy, and just speaking for them on their behalves, whether they don't have internet, whether they're hurt, whatever the case can be. And that's both for families in Gaza, that's families in Egypt, and that's families pretty much all over the world. There's no shortage. So if you have a particular interest, I'm more than sure that one of us can put you in the right direction of who you should talk to, or at least a family that you can get in contact with and help the best way that you know how to do. Yes, empathy is the first step. Understanding is secondary. And that's the best way that I could describe it. Are you informed? Maybe, maybe not. But it doesn't take much for you to just say, hey, killing babies is bad. And that's all you need to know, right? Killing kids is bad.
Yeah.
So take a moment, reflect on that, please. Reflect on the missing and those who did not get to make it back home to their families. And
I wanted to say one last thing about, I think either, was it today or yesterday that was Columbus Day?
that was yesterday. I made a video
Okay,
about it.
so, I mean, it's interesting that we would still celebrate something like Columbus Day. Instead, please donate and look into organizations that deal with the MMIW movement. So focusing on missing and murdered Indigenous people, basically, at this point, instead of focusing our attention on the colonizers who created these problems to begin with.
So they did rename it. They did rename it to Indigenous Peoples Day.
Good.
But on the calendar, it shows up as both and not just Indigenous Peoples Day. So they refused to get rid of the other bullshit and left that on there, of course. We want to hear from you. What do you think the next step should be for Gaza, for Israel, for the people that are just caught in between? Drop your thoughts down in the comment and let us know. And if this episode resonated with you, make sure to subscribe to Kim's Breaking Point and Fim from the She Roast podcast and share this with someone who needs to hear it. And one more thing, I just want to let you know that we are having a concert on October 19th at noon CST, and that will be over on TikTok. And this concert is just to raise money for families who are both in Gaza and in Egypt, people who are caught in the crossfire and just need a little bit of extra help. So please make sure that you come, you join us on TikTok. All my information will be linked right down below. And thank you so much for joining us, and have a great day.